TG Geeks, episode 231, January 22nd, 2019. Picking the geographical cure and actually finding yourself. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. And I'm Keith Lane. We're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, and we're actually not time shifting this week. We're actually here.
Yes, and I'm Ben Raggington, coming to you from a pizza oven.
A pizza oven. Yes.
That's what it feels like outside.
Exactly.
Other words, known as Phoenix, Arizona.
The surface of
the
Valley
sun.
of the Sun. Valley of the Sun.
Not today, it isn't.
Not today, it isn't. Well, let's get on with this thing.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, we have an interview with an author, Jonathan LaPoma, and we've known Jonathan almost as long as we've known Patricia Chica.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were introduced to him way back when, and we just never really connected with him until now, and now we're going to do an interview. We have our birthday shout-outs as usual, our featured podcast of the week, and we have our feedback. We have a little bit of feedback, right?
Oh, we have a bit.
Yeah, a bit. And we're going to have our second segment where we're going to talk about something very, very interesting and exciting. And then a weekly recap, and we follow up with our shout-outs. So we're just going to get right to it here. And this time on the show, we have Jonathan LaPoma, who is an award-winning writer, screenwriter, songwriter, poet, you name it, he does it. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Okay, nice little twist there.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I have to add my little silliness to everything, you know. Tell us, who is Jonathan LaPoma, and how did you get into the writing, and what made you decide that that's what you wanted to do? I assume you're doing that for a living and making your money that way.
Well, I'm writing by night and teaching by day.
So, okay.
Yes, but the writing thing for me, or learning that I wanted to write, was a very slow process. When I was younger, when we first got our first computer when I was about 8 years old, I just instinctively started typing stories.
Baby.
And in fact, for one of our science fairs, or actually we call it an interest fair, I submitted 6 short stories for that. So
cool.
But I kind of put that writing away for a while, and then I didn't really get back to it until my early 20s. I moved to Mexico after I graduated from college, and I was down there for about 4.5 months. And right around the end of my trip, I started getting this idea to turn some of those experiences that I'd had there into a novel. And so when I got back home, back to Buffalo, I just jumped out of bed one night and I started writing down ideas for that story on anything I could find, like napkins and blank pages in my yearbook. And pretty soon I started doing an outline in 3-subject notebooks, and that outline turned into a full-blown novel. And at the time, I was substitute teaching at my old high school, so in free periods, I would just start scribbling in the notebook, and after a while, I filled one 3-subject notebook, then another 1-subject notebook, and so that became my first novel.
Wow!
And so I didn't really, I didn't go to school for it, or it was just something that's I feel just kind of came out of me sort of naturally.
Right.
And then once I got that out of me, I kind of taught myself how to screenwrite by reading several books, including The Screenwriter's Bible by David Trotter, which is an excellent book for anybody who wants to get into screenwriting. I would recommend starting with that one. It teaches you like the structure of screenplays and you know what acts are and how to write characters. And it doesn't get into like a lot of the depth of any of that, you know, or the theory or anything. It just teaches you the basics for how to get started writing. So I just started writing screenplays after that and kind of kept going from there.
Cool. So what is it that you teach during the day, if you don't mind saying?
Well, I'm certified to teach history at the secondary level, and I have taught civics and U.S. history at a middle school in Miami in 2008 and 2009. Wow. And then since moving to San Diego, which I was told at the time, it was the height of the recession, don't move to San Diego if you're trying to get a job as a teacher because they're laying people off left and right. But I got a job at an independent study school out here, which is completely different than the traditional school. Students come usually 2 days throughout the week, and they do 80% of their work at home and 20% in the classroom. And it's not, I'm not a traditional teacher, or I guess in the traditional sense, in that I don't like stand and deliver. You know, we just basically give the students the work, and they work on it independently, and I kind of tutor them and coach them and make sure that they're taking the right classes. I you know,
so it sounds like
their parents.
It sounds like part-time counselor, part-time one-on-one tutor then.
Yes, yeah, I prefer that much more than just regular teaching, in that I can get to know the students much better, and I think that helps me to, you know, manage behavior in the classroom, and it helps me to understand, you know, the students' strengths and weaknesses. It makes it so much better because, like, in the traditional teach, you got like 30 kids coming, 40 minutes later, 30 new kids are coming, and you know, it's just sort of chaos all day. This way, it allows me to kind of breathe a little bit and to help people a little more.
Well, that's cool. I'm kind of a history buff myself. I love history, so that kind of piqued my interest, you know. But your novels that I'm sad to say I have not read any of your work. Unfortunately,
I'd love to bring you some copies of them.
So I mean, we've kind of been in the same orbit around Patricia for quite some time now. But and I've looked at some of the synopses of your books, and I just they're all somewhat based on what's the term I'm looking for? Growing up and discovering yourself,
coming of age,
coming of age, and
more often than not, it appears that there's some type of substance or, you know, alcohol abuse or something like that in those, at least from the synopses that I read. I wonder, is that from personal experience, if you don't mind saying, or is it just something that you've seen other people go through and that's what you're writing about?
Well, a lot of the what I've written, including screenplays as well, is drawn from real experience. So, like, I'm not writing my autobiography or anything here, but what I usually say is that you know, a lot of the events in my stories and some of the characters have been made up, but all of the feeling, all of the inner thoughts, all of the suffering, all that stuff was real. You know, those are all things that I had experienced, and you know, maybe the way that it's shown in the book isn't the way it happened in real life, but I lived all those emotions. And yes, I mean, I did have issues in the past with drinking too much and drugs, and essentially what I've written. I just finished my 5th book in kind of like this loosely linked series. And essentially, and I didn't even realize this is what I was doing at first. It just started happening naturally. But I was writing a story about a young boy who has got an undiagnosed mental illness. And so each of the 5 books, this young guy is growing, and he's at a different stage in his life. And we're seeing how that mental illness is affecting him. But at the same time, he's also got this growing desire to be more creative. Like, he got this creative, artistic instinct inside of him that he doesn't really understand either. And so it's kind of, these books are sort of like, it's like this healing journey and this artistic journey are starting to come together. And it's very long and slow, you know, for all of that to happen. It happens at a very natural pace of life, but they come together in this 5th book that I've just written.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, the ups and downs, I've lived all of that. And a lot of the people, you know, I think that when you're you're dealing with those kinds of issues, you run into people who are dealing with those kinds of issues as well. And
right.
So, there's definitely times when I wake up in strange places and find myself around people who, like, I'm asking myself, like, how did I ever get into this situation, And you just kind of find yourself in these patterns, doing the same things over and over again until one day you realize, you need to step out of the pattern and make a change.
Right.
And so that's kind of where the series of books has gone. It's, the first book is showing about how the young guy, the mental illness first comes on, and he uses basketball as a way to sort of deal with the problems. But in time, he kind of switches from basketball into, like, songwriting.
Right.
And he feels like that's wrong because his mental illness is telling him, all these, when he was younger, Kurt Cobain killed himself, and, all these guys were on drugs, and, he's Catholic, and he can't do, music because it's evil. And so he's got this great conflict inside of him. Yeah. And then, the second one, he's just graduated from college and goes on a road trip with a friend who's sadistic, and, he's just trying to avoid his student teaching assignment in the fall. He wants to start a band and become famous and not have to teach, but that doesn't happen. And then the next one, he's already done his student teaching, and he realizes how horrible it was, and he escapes to Mexico. And now he's he doesn't really know what he's looking for. In one sense, he feels like he's going down there to die, just in peace, away from everybody else. But he falls in love, and, he meets a woman, and he starts to recognize what love is for the first time, and he decides that he wants to live, and so then he moves back. In the fourth book, he moves back to New York, but then he moves down to Miami, and he starts teaching at an inner city school in Miami, where he kind of learns how to distance himself from some of the negative influences in his life. The school, he learns a lot about himself from professional employment and from the kids that he works with. He sees some of the abuse that they're suffering, or he sees some of the abuse that he suffered in their eyes, and so he's starting to, like, become an adult in that fourth book. And then the fifth one is where he's, seeing a therapist and coming to terms with all of this, and, and kind of realizing that potential as a writer. And so it's a long journey. As I said, I think each individual book explores different elements and times in that character's life, to where they're each kind of self-contained stories. You could read any of them independently of the others, but I think it would be most rewarding to read them all. Yeah,
that's fascinating. That's what I kind of got from the synopses, and I think somebody on Amazon or wherever I read something, it talked about, or maybe it was on your author page, how the novels became connected, and you realize that, and that it was this character's journey. So I think that's fascinating, and obviously personal experience is always a good thing to draw on, and that's interesting that you've pulled parts of your life and experiences and what you've seen other people go through into your novels. I mean, that's always a catharsis for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, I learned so much about myself through the process of doing it. And, and also you get to see your own biases. You get to see your own, prejudices. You get to see your own, like, negative patterns of thoughts. And, like when I've created these stories, I put so much of myself into them, and step back and, like, look at some things, years later, or even after I've written it, I'm like, this is, it helps you to sort of take an inventory of yourself, emotional inventory, and
what is my thinking?
Where your life is heading.
I found exactly. I found many times when I'm just journaling, about what my day was like, I found it to be remarkably therapeutic. So, given that your characters, given that his life is drawing upon your own personal experiences, I could certainly see how. Once again, it allows for a lot of self-reflection, at yourself. I'm curious, what was the genesis in all of this? I mean, what were you doing when all of a sudden you just had this idea to put pen to paper about this exactly?
That's a good question, because it's not something for me that was like, I kind of had to come to all of this myself. And, like, I didn't have any people growing up who were really, like, artistic or, nobody was a writer. Like everybody around me was, you know, like I come from a working class area, and you know, with the mental health issues and everything, I was just kind of on my own. The creative stuff, I was just on my own. You know, it's kind of like at that time, kids are seen and not heard, and so I didn't really have anybody guiding me along and saying, "Hey, you know, you've got this really great talent for writing. Here, let's develop this." You know, I just it just something was in me, you know, and it took me years of trials and tribulations and just really exploring the world before I realized that I wanted to write. And I think that all of the exploration too, before I had started writing, I think that was part of the writing process. I think at the time what I was doing is I was putting myself into situations that would give me the experience to write someday. And I think that was an unconscious thing. And I think that a lot of the self-destruction was a result of that. And so, yeah, it was like once I had written the first book. In fact, I wasn't planning on writing any more books, but then I was talking with a friend of mine who I lived with and taught with in Miami one day, and we decided to turn some of our experiences working there into a TV series. And then, like a year or two later, after we'd done that, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on one of the characters, and I'm going to turn it into a book about sort of like my experience in Miami, which became Developing Minds: An American Ghost Story. And then again, like after that, I didn't have any intention in writing anything else. But then I started thinking about, you know, the time that I'd spent in San Diego, you know, and confronting my mental illness. I've got obsessive compulsive disorder, you know, a couple of anxiety disorders and depression, and you know, these things are usually comorbid with one another.
Yes. Oh yes, I know.
Oh yeah, we understand.
And once I started to come to terms with that, I realized I wanted to write something about my time in San Diego. But when I edited my first book about Mexico, I wrote all these out of order, by the way. So when I was editing my second book, my first book about Mexico, as soon as I got to the end of that process, out jumped two more books. You know, I was reading John Fonte's Wait Until Spring Bandini. He's writing about his childhood, you know, and I started thinking, like, I'd written a screenplay that was roughly based on my childhood called Bellwood, and out came this other book, Hammond. You know, I wrote a story about this main character's childhood. And then I was like, you know, there's this road trip I took with a friend after I graduated from college, and it was just, I feel like that was the darkest part of my entire life. You know, I think a lot of times when students leave college, that's, you know, especially when they have undiagnosed mental health issues, that becomes like, you know, one of the most difficult parts of their life, because they've been in school, you know, they sort of institutionalized their whole lives. Then it's sort of like, here you go, just dropping people into society. And it's like, they haven't developed the skills that they need to survive in society. And I've read before that's, you know, a time that's particularly bad for a lot of people, you know, is that time. So I wanted to really represent that. And I think that story in particular has had a lot of, you know, it had a big effect with a lot of young people. People who have read it have told me, like, this is, you know, one of my favorite stories. I also have people tell me it's you know, the worst thing they've ever read. But I think it's really affecting people when they read it. So I feel like it's, you know, I accomplished my goal with that one.
Right. So I think you go from a structured environment to leaving school, and it's completely unstructured.
Well, you're being thrown to the wolves.
Unless you have, you know, some type of structured job that you go right into after college. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, those people stay in the structure, and it's the ones that don't have a job right after college that kind of fall into the, well, I mean, everybody does. Even in that structured environment, they have their, I won't say midlife crisis, but their early life crisis, you know, to figure out who they are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like that's what I've been writing, is sort of like this quarter life crisis, you know, like this character who, exactly what you just said, when he starts to work in Miami, he's got this job. It gives him structure, but the second he gets away from the job, he starts falling into bad habits. And once he gets the summer break, he just turns into a full-blown alcoholic again, you know, and so he decides he needs to get the hell out of there, and he moves to California because he feels like he's just going to end up on the beaches, you know, in South Beach, just drinking himself to death.
Well,
so...
But the problem is, no matter where you go, there you are.
Exactly. And so until you really confront those issues, which is what the character does in this final book, you're not going to be happy anywhere. He like was almost like obsessed with having this structure. And, he does the same thing in this last book. When he gets a job here in San Diego, he just clings to this job like he's hanging over a cliff, and because it gives structure and it gives some direction, But I think it's, and this is what I had to do in my own life, is to learn how to sort of to be okay away from that structure and have structure myself, to where I could be anywhere and be able to take care of myself and to keep myself, moving forward and staying away from negative influences. And, I've gotten to that point in my life now, and to where I'm actually hoping, because I do obviously teach about during the day. I'd like to get to the point now where I'm just doing the writing thing full time, and
right.
I don't have any of these issues coming back to haunt me.
Yeah. So tell us about your screenwriting. You've written quite a few screenplays. Has anything been made at this point? I know you've won a couple of awards for your screenplays. Have you not?
Yes, yeah. In fact, I just won the 160th award
wow.
A couple weeks ago. Yeah,
far out.
I've written 13 screenplays. It started with my script, A Noble Truth, which I, from teaching myself how to screenwrite to getting a final draft, took about 6 weeks, and that was in 2010. And I actually, I dug on personal experience with that, but it's only about like maybe 5 to 10% real experience. And it's about a road trip these guys take after college, So again, it's sort of similar to the book that I'd written. And they decide they want to write a book that's about, they want to essentially find the truth in the United States that unites people. Obviously we're falling into discord and, just apathy in this country and extremism. And these guys wanted to find something that's unites people. And as they're going on this journey, they recognize the fact that they're both running from their own truths, and they have to confront those before they can, feel any kind of happiness and unity inside themselves. And so I started with that one, and then the second one, I kind of, again, drew on my own experiences growing up playing basketball at a local courts where, just it's about a group of kids who dream of being high school champions. But as we see as the years go on, their lives just start to fall apart, and so, and that one's called Bellwood. But then after that one, I stopped kind of writing about my own experiences, and I started writing just completely fabricated stories. But the thing is, I was still drawing on issues and things that I was going through, And so I wrote a story about this young boy who loves animals, who is just tormented by the fact that his father is forcing him to work in the slaughterhouse where the men in their family have worked for generations.
Wow.
And so I have no experience working in the slaughterhouse or anything like that, but that's the idea of the story is just that the slaughterhouse represents this abusive home situation. And we're seeing how, like, we actually get a little glimpse how the father used to be a very sensitive young boy too, but he's the knocker at this plant. He's the guy who like knocks the cows out with the stun gun or the bolt gun as they're going into the slaughterhouse. And, he's just been so desensitized to life and he just kills every day, and so we see this hardened guy trying to make his son hardened. He's trying to turn him into a killer too. And we just see how this destroys the sensitive young guy's life.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, and I again, like all the stories from there, they kind of came from things where I sort of dipped into things that I'd felt somewhere in my life. Like the fourth one is about a young girl who moves from Peru, I believe, to work in a small ski resort in Montana, and she's suffering from OCD. And so that came about when I had a friend of mine who actually was doing just that. I read the rules that she had to follow when she got to the ski resort, and they just made me feel like completely claustrophobic,
Wow.
And so a lot of these ideas, they kind of started originally as things that I sort of experienced, to things where I've taken sort of like an emotion or something that I've experienced and created a story based on that. And as the scripts went along, they went from like these dark psychological stories to more humorous stories. In fact, lately I've been writing more like black comedies.
Oh, cool.
And I have not actually had anything produced yet. I had sold this short script to a director in London in the summer of 2016, I believe. I have options script to the producer of the American Pie and Final Destination films in July of 2017, and we just renewed the option yesterday.
Wow.
So we're hoping to get that made. Patricia Chica, she's working right now on creating or producing the script that I co-wrote with a woman named Natalia Porras-Siblabova, and that script is called La Tierra que Yo Amo, Land That I Love, and we're trying to get that one made. And I did co-write a couple of scripts over the fall with two different directors, and hopefully, those will get made as well. So right now, nothing has been produced, but I've got some projects going that, I'm just waiting any day now to hear some good news.
Cool. We would love to talk to you more, but unfortunately, we're hitting up against the deadline, the red line here. But oh my God, we would love to talk to you some more because there is so much to talk to you about. So
we didn't even talk about your songwriting or your poetry or anything else.
There's so much. So we need to, at some point, have you back on the show because there's a lot more we'd like to talk to you about. But in the meantime, if people want to learn more about what you're doing, any of your projects, is there any social media presence that you're on, be it Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, where people can find out what you're doing?
Well, I think probably the best would be Facebook. I do have Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I haven't quite mastered social media yet, but I think probably they get the most information from Facebook, and that's just John LaPoma, JonLapoma. Look me up there. And that's my Twitter handle, too, JonLapoma, as well as my Instagram. But I think it would actually probably be most beneficial if they follow my mailing list. And they can do that by going to my website, www.johnlapoma.com, and then just filling in their email. And there's a section right on that homepage where it says, sign up for Jonathan LaPoma's mailing list. Because I send out regular emails about projects that I have coming up. I give them updates about things that I'm doing, and I also give away free samples of my work. So I think it's probably the best way of connecting with me. But also, if they want to follow me on social media, it's pretty much just JonLapoma on all those.
Awesome.
That is really great. This has been pretty awesome. We do need to talk to you again and talk to you about more about what you've got coming up, because I know that you're entering a new phase, and that's a exciting time. And we thank you for being on the show with us this time.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this, so I would love to be back.
Hey guys, my name's Gigi Edgley. I play Tiana on Farscape, and I'm the host of Jim Henson's Creature Shop Challenge. And you're listening to the amazing, awesome, amazing, brilliant, perfect, wonderful Two Gay Geeks. Mwah!
That's a lot of amazing.
That's a lot of amazing. She is amazing, though. She's just. We saw her at
WhedonCon.
At WhedonCon again.
Couldn't get a chance to talk to her though because circumstances didn't work out.
Yeah, she had her baby with her, and it was just not enough time.
No, and her husband had to work.
Yeah,
so he couldn't take the child.
Yeah, anyway, so we've got. That was a really good interview with Jonathan.
It was very nice.
It was very great.
It was so glad that we were able to finally talk to him.
Yeah,
it was well overdue.
Yeah. Here's a few selected birthdays for July 22nd through July 28th.
Oh, my.
The 22nd.
Yes, the tooth.
The tooth. July 22nd. Alex Trebek, America's favorite answer man.
Right.
And Willem Dafoe.
Oh, I love him.
David Spade, who actually lives here in the Valley. Actually
Scottsdale.
In Scottsdale, yeah. Danny Glover. Gregor Mendel, who was the father of modern genetics, and he was actually a monk in the Augustinian Abbey of St. Thomas.
No kidding.
Yeah, where
wow.
he worked with several people and the genetics of pea plants. Pea as in P-E-A, not P-E-E. Anyway.
Oh, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome. We've also got on the 22nd, this is a big day for people, Albert Brooks.
No, he's Mel Brooks' younger brother.
Yes,
it's a fact.
It's a fact. It's a fact. Bobby Sherman.
Wow, now there's a name out of the 60s.
I just had to throw that out because teen heartthrob from the 60s and the early 70s kind of came on the scene, and Here Come the Brides. It was, oh gosh, I can't remember which network it was on, but it was set up in Seattle, and they were bringing in brides for the lumberjacks and all that. And it was an interesting thing. That's where he kind of claimed to fame, and then he became a singer. And Lynn painted a rock of Bobby Sherman. I had to put that's the main reason I had to put Bobby Sherman on here. Is to tell you about the painting on the rock.
Thus gave birth to pet rocks.
Exactly. You never know. Also on July 22nd, Don Henley, Terrence Stamp, Rhys Ifans, who was Sherlock's brother in Elementary, yes. And let's see, Alan Menken, whose longtime musical partner, Howard Ashman, gave life to so many different characters, Disney characters. Also, Louise Fletcher, who we've seen recently because we've been doing a rewatch of DS9.
Yes, she's Kai Wynn.
Kai Wynn, oh my gosh. And also, lastly, on July 22nd, James Whale, the
director of Frankenstein, the 1931 movie.
As well as many other films, great films. July 22nd, Daniel Radcliffe. Do we need to tell anybody who that is?
No, we don't.
Okay. Ronnie Cox, Woody Harrelson, and I grudgingly put Don Imus on here because he really kind of... If you think about it, he and Howard Stern and some of that ilk.
Oh, don't lump Don and Howard together.
No. You have to hear me out. They were kind of that whole talk show thing that really kind of has given birth to podcasting. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So I put him on here, as I said, grudgingly. So there he is. That's enough said. July 24th. Amelia Earhart, Kristen Chenoweth, Alexandre Dumas. He was the famed food king. He gave us the Three Musketeers and the Monte Cristo sandwich.
Oh, God.
Right?
How long were you working on that one?
Not very long. I had to write it down.
Tell. Yeah, because it's not fully baked, but I'm bummed.
That was good. No, he wrote the Three Musketeers and Count of Monte Cristo. An interesting thing, several interesting things about Dumas was that his works have spawned over 200 films.
Oh, yeah.
200 films. And he was of mixed descent. In fact, his mother was a slave.
No kidding.
Yeah, so interesting. So he's made good. Also on July 24th, Linda Carter, the original Wonder Woman.
Well, not the original, but everybody's favorite.
Everybody's favorite until today. Favorite Wonder Woman from the 70s.
Okay.
There we go.
Everybody still loves her.
Yes. And Christopher Sarandon and Ruth Buzzy.
Oh, my God, from Laugh-In.
From Laugh-In. And my mother, Pat Bates. Originally Patricia O'Neill. We were the rebellious O'Neills.
You dropped the L.
The second L, yes. July 25th, Estelle Getty. Walter Brennan, who was, God, he was in everything. I was looking through some of his filmography, and he had a small speaking part in The Bride of Frankenstein.
No kidding, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
And just everything. And let's see, Maria Hughes.
My mother.
Oh, was that your mother?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Happy birthday to your mother. Happy birthday. July 26th, Mick Jagger, Sandra Bullock, Stanley Kubrick. Do we need to tell anybody who Stanley Kubrick is?
If you are listening to this podcast and you do not know who Stanley Kubrick is, leave this show.
Airwaves.
Leave this show now.
Exactly. Also, Helen Mirren, George Bernard Shaw, Nana Visitor, speaking of Deep Space Nine,
yeah.
And Vivian Vance. And,
oh, my.
She was...
she played Ethel Mertz.
Ethel Mertz. Did you know there's a rumor that she and William Frawley hated each other?
It's not a rumor. It is not a rumor. It has been documented. Yes, they hated each other.
Wow.
But everybody hated William Frawley.
Well, anyway.
He was not supposed to be originally Fred. It was supposed to be Gail Gordon was supposed to play the part of Fred, but he couldn't do it contractually for some reason.
Well, anyway. So we have that. And then we have Goodnight, Gracie Allen.
Good night, Gracie Allen.
Exactly. Roger Taylor.
Okay, which Roger Taylor?
This is the real Roger Taylor.
Okay, that doesn't help. Are we talking of Queen?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
It's interesting that Brian's birthday was last
Just the other
week.
day. Yeah, Brian just turned 72.
Yeah. And then Roger Taylor, he's 70, I think.
About.
I think it was. And also on July 26th, Blake Edwards and David Heyman. David Heyman is a producer on
He did the Harry Potter films.
as well as many other things. July 27th, Norman Lear, Bobby Gentry.
Oh, my. There's another name of the past.
Going way back. Ode to Billy Joel.
Yes.
She's not Joel, Billy Joe, who jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge.
Right.
Yes. And Gary Gygax.
Oh, my.
Of Chainmail.
Dungeons and Dragons after that?
Dungeons and Dragons, yes. Can't forget that little thing.
No.
And a Facebook friend of ours, Andrea Hernandez Valdez. July 28th, Beatrix Potter.
Okay, now that name is actually making my head hurt.
Beatrix Potter.
Well, because I see that, and the first thing that runs through my head is Bellatrix.
Bellatrix, yes.
And Bellatrix and a Potter. It's like, no, that's not happening for me.
She wrote the evil Peter Rabbit.
Ooh.
Bellatrix Potter.
I like that. I want to read that story.
Exactly. Also, sorry, I got tickled.
The evil Peter Rabbit.
The evil Peter Rabbit. Also on July 28th, Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis. And Ricardo Muti, who is a famed conductor. And Earl Tupper. He worked for DuPont. And out of some slag, the process of refining, actually created some items for the war effort in 1938.
Oh.
And then in 1945, he began making household items known as
Tupperware.
How about that? Also, July 28th, Facebook friend Graham Dedman and an old friend of mine, Bruce Grow. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Hi, my name is Joe Hogan, and I'm a geek. And if you're currently listening to this, there's a good chance you're a geek too. So check out my podcast, Geektitude. Each week, I talk with somebody about their geek aptitude. Sometimes I talk to people in a geeky profession. Sometimes it's someone doing something really cool with their geekiness. Often it's another geeky podcaster. But it's always someone who wants to share their inner geek. So join me each week as we come together to geek out about all the geeky stuff we love. And remember, this week, keep it geek.
Go give a listen to our friend Joe over at Geektitude Podcast. I'm so jealous he's at Comic-Con this weekend.
Yeah, I'm terribly jealous.
Yeah.
Well, when he lives in Palm Springs, so it's a little
But he's been
easier.
a long time, goer of Comic-Con.
It's easier for him to make it.
It's just not in the budget this year for us.
No, because we were
time budget or
we were just in LA.
Financial budget. Yeah.
It's going to require planning.
Yep. So let's go on.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counselors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
Oh boy. Thank you.
You have that long-suffering husband shtick down to an art here.
Lots of practice. No.
Oh,
Ouch.
Zingo. Wow.
Sorry, my Freudian slip just showed. Sorry about that. Anyway, it's feedback time. Quickly change the subject, trying to save my hide.
See if I cook any more for you.
Oh, dear God. Anyway, first off, regarding Ben's breakdown, Late Night is a movie that fails to talk or laugh. And we got feedback from John Smith on Twitter. And he wrote, that's a shame. Like you said, it obviously had a lot of potential. And it really
did. Oh, my gosh. This cast was stellar. And it just kind of fell flat. I mean,
it's like it did not know what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
And that's what really killed it.
I mean, there were some good bits, but it was uneven.
It was uneven. Very uneven, yeah. And then also regarding Ben's breakdown, Toy Story 4 is like a detective toy.
The detective toy.
Detective toy, yes. Here's Sherlock Holmes in a box. Yeah, Toy Story 4 is like a defective toy out of the box. Got a comment from Hamish Down. He says, I don't think John Lasseter would have had too much input in the last 2 years of production as he was forced out of the company when some misconduct came to light. Yeah, but apparently I've read that the initial part of the story is his. Now, again, I have no idea how much is his and how much isn't.
Yeah, he
to
generally shepherded most of the Pixar films. I mean, he had last say.
He did, and that was it. He shepherded them from beginning to end. He would watch over them. Yeah. And if this just came out as initial story idea from him, then you're still lacking his oversight to make sure that what comes out at the end is a product that will be that'll resonate with everybody. And this movie did not.
And I mean, it was an okay film.
It had some very funny moments.
Yeah, I don't think that it needed to be done.
No,
to be honest,
I agree
myself. But
they should have stopped at 3.
Yeah.
And then we got a comment from Dottie Crone. And she says, thanks again for your review. I had only heard raving reviews, so it is always appreciated to hear all views. Can't wait to see it myself. And there does seem to be more and more people coming out of the woodwork that are expressing their slight unhappiness with the film, their lack of satisfaction, so it's not just us. And then lastly, this is in regards to episode 226, where I guess we had a little chat about The Dead Don't Die.
Yeah.
Got a comment from Arkle. He said, I would like to see The Dead Don't Die. I've liked the handful.
Oh, okay.
What?
I'm sorry.
What?
I just skipped ahead.
Oh, okay. Yes, he says, I would like to see The Dead Don't Die. I've liked a handful of Jim Jarmusch movies I've seen, Ghost Dog in particular, but I'm hesitant to see this one in theaters for a couple of reasons. I'm still a bit miffed about Jarmusch feeding into the whole anti-Stratfordian nonsense in Only Lovers Left Alive, even if it wasn't intentional, as I don't know the director's views on the subject, unlike with Roland Emmerich and his abominable movie Anonymous. But don't get started on that piece of dreck, or we'll be here all day. I think I'll wait for this one on Netflix or maybe Redbox. Now, I do need to make a comment. Arkle did give another reason. It's really social political. So, but his reason is sound, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. So if you want to read that comment, you can go to our YouTube channel.
Yes, he left that on a YouTube page, yes.
So if you want to leave a comment on anything that we publish, whether it's on Facebook or on Twitter, Instagram, or tggeeks.com, you can do that. We have comment sections on every place that we publish, and you can comment on that, and we'll we will have your comment, and we will talk about it on air. I've lost my train of thought here, even though I have a script in front of me, which is nothing unusual. So, if you want to comment,
I should point out that was actually written in the script. So there you go.
Please leave a comment. And I guess what I was kind of jumping ahead, and my mind was going 90-0 here, is if you want to leave a comment on our voicemail line, and we'll play that on air, you can do that at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. And please play nice. Well, next time, I think that we are going to have singer-songwriter Donovan Holden. We spoke to him, and he has a new album out, so we're going to talk about that. So stay tuned next week. If you are in transition or have already transitioned and are in crisis, or you know of someone in crisis, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by specially trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to the translifeline.org for more information about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Yeah, we got all the time in the world. Thank you. Yes, we did something kind of fun earlier this week.
Oh, my gosh.
It's something that we've been planning since December.
Oh, my God. We were in the middle of Disney World.
We were at the transportation hub
We were at the
when we were doing
transportation
this.
hub, yes. When I purchased tickets to Queen with Adam Lambert in July. So it was the first part of December that we were in Disney World and purchased tickets 8 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, but we got really good seats, and
they were awesome.
Fantastic concert.
It was fabulous.
I'm telling you, Adam does a great job of doing the music of Queen and not imitating
He's
Freddie.
not imitating Freddie, no.
He's doing his own thing that is influenced by Freddie.
Clearly. I mean,
So-
you can see Freddie's influence on him, but you're right. It's not an imitation of what Freddie does. And what I really loved about this, because this is the second time we've seen Queen with Adam now, and when we saw them a few years back, it felt like that the audience was mostly there for Adam, because I remember talking to a lot of people before the concert, days before the concert, and also at various restaurants before the concert began that night. And everyone's like, they weren't there for Queen. They were there for Adam because he was still kind of fresh off American Idol, even though that had been a couple of years also. And the audience kind of felt sort of lackluster as far as Queen's music went. Since that time, there's been the film Bohemian Rhapsody, and this tour, it genuinely felt like everybody in that arena was all about Queen.
Yeah.
The audience
Oh my
was
gosh, it was
so
incredible.
invested.
Yeah.
And even Brian had to make a comment about it. Now, it was fairly early on in the tour, but he said up to that point it was the best show that they'd done. And, I mean, like one touching moment when he asked everybody to turn on their cell phones during Love of My Life. And
Oh,
it
my
was
gosh.
such a beautiful moment.
And sing along.
Yeah, and it had everybody crying. I mean, it was beautiful, wonderful. I mean, I could not... the other thing, I love the programming.
Yeah.
The song set, the set list was so amazing that for a show that was just barely over 2 hours, it felt like 3. And I mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
It felt like such a long show because they were doing so many songs. I could not have been happier. I mean, that was amazing. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever do it again because, as we both pointed out, Brian and Roger are in their 70s now.
Yep.
If they can do this again, I would be there in a heartbeat. I know you would too.
Oh, yeah.
I can only hope. And if you don't have to be a fan of Queen's music, but if you want to see a phenomenal show, go to a Queen concert. You will not be sorry.
Oh my gosh, I didn't think they were going to do anything really phenomenal like they did at the last show, but this one surprised me. They pulled out some interesting things that they did.
And there was lots of good theater too. It was a wonderful concert, and like I said, if they ever should decide to tour again, and I hope they will, although I'd understand if they don't, we will be there.
Absolutely. And I'm going to save a comment because we've got in the wrap up of what we published this week, I'll make a comment about something there. So That is anything else for the second segment you want to talk about? Yeah. Well, as everybody knows, we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether they're filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. Please, if you see independent creators at book fairs, at cons, at art galleries, wherever it is, comic book shops, etc., please buy their stuff and talk about their stuff. Tell people about their stuff. Tell people about what you just discovered. Talk them up. And please have cash for them if you are going to buy anything from them. So please consider supporting independent creators. CocoCon is returning for a second year. This is a mashup of two different cons, and they are going to be doing this for the second year. They call it CocoCon, and it's Labor Day weekend at the DoubleTree Hotel in Metro Center, Phoenix. You should come to this con. They've got some really interesting people that are coming. It's a small con, fan-run con. It's a well-run fan-run con.
It's very intimate.
And it's very intimate. You can talk to people, enjoy the festivities. There's all kinds of stuff going on all hours of the day and night. Come on down. We're going to be there. Enjoy the folks and the festivities. We're going to be doing our concast as well as socializing. Check out cococon.org, COKOCON.org. The Joshua Tree Feeding Program is a feeding program in Maricopa County for low-income HIV-positive residents of Maricopa County. They provide balanced meals from their pantry, and it is a pantry where the clients come in and they choose the food that they want. It's very much like a grocery store. They have it all set up. You can choose breads and fruits and vegetables and frozen foods and canned foods and this and that and the other and beverages and cat food and dog food and everything that you need for those low-income residents of Maricopa County. They've also started a new program that you can or not volunteer, but you can give to them a monthly gift. It's the Pearl program, and it's $30 a month. It helps them with their budgeting. So please consider supporting Joshua Tree either through a single gift or that monthly recurring gift or a monthly recurring gift of any size. Go to jtfp.org. Now Ben's going to give us a weekly review of the items that we published this last week.
Starting on Sunday, July 14th, Jan D. Gordon, photographer, releases LGBTQ of Steel. That's a very interesting article, and it's in relation to our visit down there.
Absolutely.
And then also Dr. Zombie, Monster Family Physician number 57. On Monday, July 15th, TG Geeks episode number 230. On Tuesday the 16th, Ben's Gay book breakdown is a book review. The Big Bad Wolf series is a surprisingly sophisticated murder mystery, but it is not a guilty pleasure. On Wednesday, July 17th, 5 Questions with Naomi McDougall-Jones. On Thursday the 18th, Andrea's Angle, The Art of Self-Defense is a movie that has a heavy-handed message. On Friday, the 19th, News Sushi number 71, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. And then on Saturday, the 20th, this is good. First, Brunch at Perch in Los Angeles. Keith calls it a rousing rooftop repast. That's a really good restaurant review.
And I have to say, as I said in the article of that review, I said that one goes into our top 10 of favorite places that we've eaten.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, we will be doing that again.
Oh, no question. And then, this is fun.
Oh my gosh.
We have a correspondent at Comic-Con.
A special correspondent.
Because we can't make it this year. And so, San Diego Comic-Con 50, Hall H panel, Terminator Dark Fate.
With Arnold.
And then...
And Linda Hamilton.
And Linda Hamilton, yes. And then San Diego Comic-Con 50, Hall H panel, Top Gun Maverick. And Tom Cruise actually showed up. He was there.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So yes, we have a person who's actually there. She's trying to get into Hall H today as we speak.
Yeah, and this is Saturday we're recording this. You can find all these things at tggeeks.com, as well as entries on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. Please visit and comment on all of those things.
Have a couple of shout-outs. The Arkle Times Post Dispatch News is put up by the Human Arkle. You heard feedback from him earlier. He is Brian Weber. You can find the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News, which republishes our content from time to time, by going to Twitter and searching Arkle, at ARKLE. And speaking of Arkle, he is on YouTube with his shameless cash grab. He's in season 3 right now. All you have to do is go to youtube.com/Arkle Studios, and that's all one word, and you can find it there. And we must give some shout-outs to some Facebook groups for also allowing us to post our episodes and relevant articles on their pages. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours. Big thanks to the moderators for quite literally granting us permission in saying share away. And we do. And their URL is facebook.com/group/Gay Geeks After Hours. And then to The Gay Geek for also allowing us to share our stuff on their page. And their URL is facebook.com/groups/thegaygeek. And as always, we must give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves, for being such an awesome person and allowing us to share all of that there.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And lastly, we are now on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Also, check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays, and listen to their other content. Krypton Radio is a 24-hour geeky internet radio station celebrating 10 years on the air. Please rate us and review us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out this article for the webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page of things we talked about. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page as well as Twitter, Instagram, and at tggeeks.com. Or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind. Peace.
Evil Peter Rabbit.
Cheers.